The woman of the Apocalypse is a figure from chapter 12 of the book of Revelation. In this narrative, the woman gives birth to a male child that is attacked by the dragon, identified as the devil and Satan. When the child is taken to heaven, the woman flees into the wilderness, leading to war in heaven, in which the angels cast out the dragon. The dragon then attacks the woman, who is given wings to escape, and then the dragon proceeds to attack her with a flood of water from his mouth, which is subsequently swallowed by the earth. Frustrated, the dragon initiates war on the remnant of her seed, identified as the righteous followers of Christ. The woman of the Apocalypse is widely identified as the Virgin Mary. This interpretation is held by the ancient Church as well as in the medieval and modern Roman Catholic Church. This view does not negate the alternative interpretation of the woman representing the Church, as in modern Catholic dogma, Mary is herself considered both the Mother of God and the Mother of the Church. Narrative. The text describes a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. The woman is pregnant and about to give birth, travailing in birth, and pain to be delivered. Then there is the great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads, who is about to devour her child as soon as it was born. But her child is caught up unto God, and the woman herself is fled into the wilderness, where she hath a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. Then there is a description of war in heaven of the angels against the dragon, and the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent, called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. The woman is again mentioned in 12:13, as she is persecuted by the dragon, and 2 wings of a great eagle are given to her to escape. The dragon attacks her by water as a flood emerging from his mouth, but the flood is swallowed up by the earth. So the dragon went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God, and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Interpretation as the Virgin Mary. History. Ancient witnesses to the Marian interpretation include Street, Epiphanius Tychonius, the unknown author of the history of Joseph the Carpenter, Quodvoldius, Cassiodorus, and the Greek fathers Andreases of Caesarea and Oikoumenios. In modern times, the Marian interpretation has been affirmed by Pope Pius X, Pope Pius XII, Pope Paul VI, and Pope John Paul II. Theological interpretation. The woman's male child is a reference to Jesus, since he is destined to rule all nations with a rod of iron. The dragon trying to devour the woman's child at the moment of his birth is a reference to Herod the Great's attempt to kill the infant Jesus. Through his death and resurrection, Jesus was snatched up to God and to his throne. In the interpretation of Pius X, the birth not that of Jesus but surely ours, i.e., that of the Church militant yet detained in exile, are still to be brought forth to the perfect love of God and eternal happiness. Pius XII makes explicit the reference to the Assumption of Mary, and John Paul II to the Proto-Evangelium interpretation of Genesis chapter 3 verse 15, and by extension the symbolic identification of the woman with both Mary and Eve. For an assessment of the logical and theological reasons for identifying the woman of Revelation chapter 12 with Mary, Mother of God, see Brand Aero Gardini. Raised to heaven because co-redemptrix on earth. Thoughts on the foundation of the Catholic dogma and Argon J.L. The Apocalypse in the Jerome Biblical Commentary. Veneration. Both Marian veneration and the interpretation of the woman of the Apocalypse are recorded since at least the 4th century, but the specific veneration of Mary in this form becomes tangible only in the medieval period. Iconographically, Marian figures associated with the Revelations narrative are recognizable by the astronomical attributes, specifically her standing on a crescent moon, and the crown of 12 stars. Association of Mary with a single star is recorded from the early medieval period, in the hymn Avenue Maris Stella. Many depictions of Mary from the Gothic period show her standing on a crescent moon, inspired by the association of Mary with the woman of the Apocalypse. The motif became so popular in 15th-century Germany that pre-existing Madonna figures were refitted with a crescent. The Virgin of Guadalupe was depicted as the Madonna of the Apocalypse since at least the 16th century. The Madonna of the Apocalypse became associated with Our Lady of the Rosary, the crown of 12 stars being identified with a rosary of 12 privileges of Mary. The Virgin of the Rosary is frequently shown with the crown, a halo of 12 stars in modern depictions. A notable example is the Virgin of the Rosary of Pompeii. An anecdote connects the design of the flag of Europe to this aspect of Marian iconography. Interpretation as the Church. Commentators who adhere to Reformed theology and are amillennial in their eschatology identify the woman as the Church, and the man-child she gives birth to are the saints. According to this interpretation, Revelation chapter 12 verse 17 describes the remnant of the seed of the woman as those who keep the commandments of God, and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. The offspring of the woman's seed, then refers to the saints. The man-child, who shall rule the nations with a rod of iron, is a symbol of the faithful members of the Church. In Revelation chapter 2 verses 18 to 29, the Church in Thyatira is promised that the faithful shall rule the nations with a rod of iron. In Revelation chapter 19 verse 15 the same thing is stated of Jesus. In Galatians chapter 4 verse 26, Paul the Apostle refers to the New Jerusalem as our mother, and in Revelation chapter 21 verse 2 and Ephesians chapter 5 verses 21 to 32 the New Jerusalem and the Church is portrayed as the bride of Christ. The Seventh-day Adventist Church has traditionally identified itself as the end-time remnant church described in Revelation chapter 12 verse 17. The Catholic Church recognizes the woman as Mary, the mother of the Christ, and the Church. The Church acknowledges what it considers an invitation in the holy verses for the reader to ponder the mysteries between the Mother of God and the Mother of the Church. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints also interprets the woman to be the Church, and the man-child to be the political kingdom that will grow out of the Church prior to and during the second coming of Christ. This interpretation is made clear by Joseph Smith's translation of the 12th chapter of Revelation. Other interpretations. The nation of Israel. Dispensational premillennialists and amillennialists who believe in multiple valid interpretations will often identify the woman as the nation of Israel. There are several reasons given to support this interpretation. The woman is said to be clothed with the sun, the moon under her feet, and 12 stars. These symbols are drawn from Genesis chapter 37 verses 9 to 11, in which Joseph has a dream of the sun and moon symbolizing his father and mother, and stars representing his 11 brothers, which bow down to him. The Old Testament's prophets referred to Israel as a woman. The woman flees into the wilderness where she is nourished for 1260 days, the equivalent of 3.5 years or 42 months. According to this interpretation, these terms are used prophetically in Scripture either for the first half or the last half of the 70th week of Daniel, in Daniel chapter 9 verses 24 to 27, a prophecy specifically addressed addressed to Daniel and his people, Israel. In the latter part of the 70th week, a remnant of Israel will flee into the wilderness to escape the persecution of Antichrist, who is called the Son of Destruction, the Lawless One, and whose coming is in accord with the activity of Satan. Jesus, in the Olivet Discourse, warned the people of this time which would occur just prior to his return to set up his earthly, millennial kingdom. Further, the archangel Michael is called the guardian over the sons of Israel in Dan 12:1, and he will arise at the time of national Israel's tribulation. Amillennialist belief can also interpret this passage as the nation of Israel. However, this belief as expressed by amillennialists refers not to the modern Israel, but to the ancient religious state of Israel as it existed in the time of Christ. The child is Christ, born into the then existing state of Israel, and of Israel's lineage. The remnant of sons of Israel is, in this understanding, the followers of Christ, the followers of the true religion of Israel as it exists after the coming of the Messiah. The 70th week of Daniel and prophecy of the Olivet Discourse in this belief are ascribed as concerning the first coming of Christ, the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 A.D., and the establishment of Christ's Church, as it currently exists both on earth and in heaven. Lutheran scholar Craig Coester, for example, says, the woman encompasses the story of Israel, from whom the Messiah was born, as well as the story of the Church, which was persecuted after Jesus' death and resurrection. John's visionary account of the threat against the woman and the woman's preservation uses imagery that encompasses many moments in the story of God's people. This allows the story to apply to people in many times and places. Astrological Symbolism. Russian Orthodox theologian Sergei Bulgakov, in his interpretation of Revelation, notes of the astronomical attributes of the woman in Babylonian, Persian, Greek and Egyptian mythologies. He takes the crown of 12 stars as representing the zodiac. In his interpretation, astronomical attributes of a pagan goddess are here translated into the language of Christian theology and assume the new symbolism: Christian science, science and health with key to the scriptures. The foundational text of Christian Science presents the woman in the Apocalypse as symbolizing generic man, the spiritual idea of God. She illustrates the coincidence of God and man as the divine principle and divine idea. The spiritual idea of God's motherhood. The man-child represents Christ. God's idea will eventually rule all nations and peoples, imperatively, absolutely. Finally, with divine science,